Okay, so picture this. It's 1960. You've got this Israeli archaeologist, Yigael Yadin, right? And he's literally dangling from ropes down this massive cliff in the Judean desert.
Incredible scene. Yeah.
He's going into what they later called the Cave of Letters. And what he found down there, I mean, it wasn't just adding a few footnotes to history.
Oh, absolutely not. It fundamentally reshaped things.
It completely changed how we see this really crucial but often kind of skipped over event in ancient history. The Bar Kokhba revolt. That was, what, 132 to 136 CE?
That's right. And it's often treated like a footnote, like you said, especially in some tellings of history. But really, it's this huge watershed moment.
A watershed moment.
Yeah, many scholars now are calling it the Great Divergence. It's that point in time where Judaism and Christianity really, truly started down separate paths, irrevocably. So our deep dive today, what we want to do is unpack some really groundbreaking research. We're looking at 3 top Israeli scholars, Yadin, the archaeologist we mentioned, Hoshafat Harkabi, who brought a military strategy perspective.
Okay.
And Doron Mendels, a historian. Their work, honestly, has just transformed how we understand this critical period.
And this isn't just, dusty ancient history stuck in textbooks. This is why it matters to you, listening right now.
Exactly.
Understanding this crisis, this massive upheaval, it sheds light on how early Christianity developed. Right?
Yeah.
It helps us think better about issues we're still dealing with today.
For sure.
And it even gives crucial context for reading parts of the Bible, like Revelation chapters 10 and 20. It's about getting to the heart of why things are the way they are.
It really is. And engaging with this history, it doesn't weaken your understanding. Often it actually strengthens it. It shows just how radical the early Christian message was in its original world.
Okay, so let's dig into that first piece then. Yadin, the scholar, the spade, the sword, as you put it. What was it about his discoveries in those caves that just blew the old narratives away?
Well, the amazing thing is Yadin found actual, physical letters and documents from Shimon Bar Kokhba himself.
Wow, okay. Not just stories about him.
Not just stories, not filtered accounts from Romans or later rabbis who might have had their own agendas. We're talking administrative letters, orders to his troops, even legal documents.
And real government stuff.
Direct documentary evidence. And it just shattered the old ideas, Whether he was this romantic hero or just some fanatic, suddenly here he is, a real military commander running a state, even if it was under siege.
So it wasn't just fighting the Romans. Yadin's finds pointed to something deeper, like a theological element to it.
Yes, exactly. It wasn't just military pushback. It was active theological defiance, especially against Christian claims that were emerging. And here's where it gets really wild.
Okay.
The rebels weren't just dreaming about rebuilding the temple. It seems they actually did it, at least for a short time.
They rebuilt the temple. How do we know that?
Well, a really compelling piece of evidence is the coins. Bar Kokhba minted his own coins during the revolt.
Right.
And these coins show the front of the temple. But crucially, ancient coins weren't used to show, future hopes. They celebrated things you'd already achieved. Victories, buildings completed.
Ah, so the coin suggests the temple was an accomplished fact, not just a wish.
Precisely. It strongly points to them actually getting temple worship going again during that brief period when they had the upper hand.
And it wasn't just symbolic, was it? I remember reading that even late in the revolt, when things were getting desperate.
Yes, even then. You find these letters where Bar Kokhba is ordering his officers to get the 4 species, the palm, citron, myrtle, willow needed for the festival of Sukkot.
Wow.
And he's insisting they have to be properly tithed according to Jewish law. That tells you they were trying to run a fully functioning religious system, even while fighting for survival.
So this gives us, and you listening, some really important context. The early Jewish rejection of Jesus wasn't just no Messiahs wanted.
Not at all. It was about fundamentally different expectations of what the Messiah should do. Christianity was already saying, look, Jesus' sacrifice made the temple system obsolete.
Right. Hebrews talks about that.
Exactly. But here's Bar Kokhba, decades later, actually restoring temple worship, retaking control. That's a massive practical theological split right there.
Okay, so Yadin paints this picture of incredible, maybe even audacious ambition, rebuilding the temple. But the revolt failed spectacularly.
Utterly. And that's where Yehoshaphat Harkabi comes in. He was a former chief of Israeli intelligence, and he looked at this whole thing with a cold, strategic eye.
And his conclusions were pretty grim, weren't they?
Grim is an understatement. Harkabi called the Bar Kokhba revolt the greatest catastrophe in Jewish history until the Holocaust.
Wow. That's a heavy statement.
It is. But he argued the consequences were just staggering. It led to an 1800-year loss of Jewish political independence, and it massively accelerated the diaspora, scattering Jews across the world, a situation that basically defined Jewish life until, well, 1948.
And Harkabi didn't just analyze the military failure. He coined a phrase, didn't he? The Bar Kokhba Syndrome. What did you mean by that? It sounds like more than just bad battle plans.
Oh, much more. The Bar Kokhba Syndrome for Harkabi was this dangerous tendency where deeply felt religious nationalism just completely overrides practical, strategic thinking.
Okay.
He pointed to the rebels' excessive zeal, their almost total disregard for the geopolitical realities of facing Rome. That combination of intense passion, unchecked by a sober look at the actual situation, led to this self-inflicted catastrophe.
So religious fervor trumping common sense, basically.
In a devastating way. And Harkabi saw it as a recurring danger, a lesson with, frankly, chilling relevance for many situations even today where religion and nationalism mix.
So if we unpack Harkabi's analysis, what are the key takeaways for us, for you, the listener?
Well, first, it really drives home the intensity of that Jewish longing for national restoration, the land, the temple, independence. It helps you understand why a Messiah figure who didn't deliver that immediately faced such an uphill battle for acceptance.
Makes sense.
Second, it's a stark reminder, isn't it? That sincere religious belief, no matter how strong, isn't a substitute for carefully assessing the facts on the ground. Good intentions aren't enough.
A hard lesson.
And third, the revolt's crushing failure basically slammed the door on any immediate hopes for restoring a Jewish state back then, and that, paradoxically, created the space, the historical context for both rabbinic Judaism, focused on law and study, and Gentile Christianity, focused elsewhere, to really crystallize into the forms we recognize.
Okay, so we've got the archaeology from Yadin showing the ambition, and the strategic fallout from Harkabi showing the catastrophe. To really tie this together, we need a kind of structural understanding. That's where Doran Mendels comes in, right? The historian from Hebrew University.
Exactly. Mendels provides this really useful theoretical framework. He identified what he calls the 4 essential pillars of Jewish nationalism in that era.
4 pillars, what are they?
Okay, so pillar 1, territory, the actual land of Israel, hugely important. Pillar 2, temple, meaning the whole priestly system, the sacrifices, the central place of worship.
Okay.
Pillar 3, kingship, the idea of a Davidic monarchy having their own king ruling independently.
Right, the lineage of David.
And pillar 4, army, military independence, the ability to defend themselves. Mendels argues that from the time of the Maccabees, centuries earlier, right through Bar Kokhba, these 4 things were seen as absolutely essential for Jewish identity and their hopes for the future.
And the failure of the Bar Kokhba revolt, according to Mendels, what did that do to these pillars?
It didn't just damage them. It completed their systematic destruction. The Romans were brutal in the aftermath.
So territory lost, temple definitely gone, kingship a distant memory, army crushed.
Precisely. All 4 pillars were just leveled. And this, Mendels argues, forced Judaism into this radical reinvention. It had to become a religion that could survive and thrive in diaspora without land, temple, king, or army.
And the focus shifted.
To intense study of the Torah and the meticulous following of halakha, Jewish law. That became the glue holding the community together across the world.
Okay, so that's the Jewish trajectory after the revolt's failure. What about the Christian alternative? How did early Christianity relate to those same 4 pillars?
Well, this is where the contrast is really stark. Early Christianity, right from the start, was built on a totally different model. Jesus talks about a kingdom not of this world.
John 18.
Exactly. It explicitly transcended territory, the physical temple called earthly politics. And crucially, this wasn't some later adaptation after the temple was destroyed in 70 CE or after Bar Kokhba failed. The New Testament shows this was the message from the beginning. It was a fundamental rejection of that nationalist messianic model.
Which brings us to this really striking point. You called it an eerie vindication earlier. The Bar Kokhba revolt didn't cause the split between Judaism and Christianity.
No, the theological differences were already there.
But it made that split concrete. Historically, politically, undeniably final.
Absolutely. What had been developing theologically suddenly became a hard historical reality. And what's so fascinating, maybe even profound, is how the New Testament writings, written before Bar Kokhba, had already systematically undermined every single one of those pillars Mendels identified.
Let's walk through that. How did the NT undermine them?
Okay, take territory. Jesus says, "My kingdom is not of this world." He warns in the Olivet Discourse, don't go chasing messiahs appearing out in the wilderness or in the inner rooms. which sounds a lot like the kind of claims surrounding Bar Kokhba.
Right. Geographic locations.
Then temple. The whole book of Hebrews argues the old sacrificial system is obsolete, ready to vanish away because of Christ's ultimate sacrifice.
Hebrews 8.13.
And then Revelation, the vision of the New Jerusalem. It says, I saw no temple in the city, John writes in Revelation 21. That's the ultimate statement about moving beyond a physical temple.
Wow. Okay, what about kingship?
Davidic kingship. The NT acknowledges Jesus' lineage, but completely spiritualizes what kingship means. Christ's kingdom isn't about armies and power. It's through suffering, service. His crown is made of thorns, not gold.
A very different picture of a king.
Totally different. And finally, army. Christianity flat out rejected military nationalism. Back to John 18. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight. But they don't.
So here's the kicker, the real irony for you listening. Christian theology was saying these pillars, territory, temple, king, army, were obsolete while they were still standing, or at least while the memory and hope for them were intensely alive.
Yes. And then, under Bar Kokhba, the Jewish people actually managed for a time to restore some of them. They retook territory, they restarted temple worship.
They had a leader acting like a king, they had an army.
Exactly. They put the pillars back up. And what happened immediately after?
Rome came in and utterly demolished precisely those restored pillars.
The historical outcome just uncannily mirrors the earlier Christian theological claims. It's not just saying history proved Christianity, right? That's too simplistic. But it shows how Christianity's framework, by detaching from those specific nationalist pillars early on, was strangely prepared for the reality that followed 70 CE and 135 CE.
While Judaism, having doubled down on those pillars under Bar Kokhba, was forced into that radical reinvention around Torah and law we talked about.
The historical alignment is just undeniable. It's quite stunning when you lay it out like that.
And this isn't just ancient history. It connects directly to today, doesn't it? The relevance continues.
It really does. Think about traditional Judaism. There's this concept of the galut, the exile, which started in 70 CE with the Second Temple's destruction.
Right.
And even with the modern state of Israel, from an Orthodox perspective, the galut technically continues because there's no third temple, no restored sacrificial system. Those four pillars Mendels talked about still aren't fully complete.
So the Christian theological framework, which detached from those pillars early on, actually speaks quite profoundly to the ongoing Jewish experience of exile in a surprising way.
It's a point of connection, or at least shared vocabulary, that's often missed. And of course, Harkabi's warnings about the Bar Kokhba Syndrome feel incredibly relevant.
How so? What are those specific pitfalls we should still be watching out for?
Well, it's that danger Harkabi flagged, letting intense religious feeling completely blind you to practical realities. The revolt is just such a vivid example of how easily deeply held beliefs can get tangled up with immediate political goals, sometimes with truly tragic, unintended consequences.
Leads to miscalculation.
Huge miscalculations. It really calls for a deep sense of humility, doesn't it? About thinking we always know exactly how God wants things done or when. That's a vital lesson for anyone trying to live out their faith in the public square today.
Absolutely. So let's bring it home. Why does digging into this deep dive matter for your practical study? Say if you're involved in apologetics.
Well, for apologists, understanding this context really strengthens the case for the New Testament's historical grounding. It highlights just how radical Christianity's claims were compared to the mainstream Jewish hopes of the time. It wasn't just a tweak, it was a fundamental shift.
Not just a Jewish sect.
Exactly. And it provides crucial background for understanding the historical roots of conflicts in the Middle East today, the deep-seated narratives on all sides.
Okay, what about for Bible students, someone just trying to understand Scripture better?
Oh, huge implications. Passages like Hebrews 8.13, obsolete, ready to vanish, or Revelation 21.22, no temple. Just come alive when you see the historical backdrop of intense temple focus.
Right.
It helps make sense of Jesus' warnings in Matthew 24 about false messiahs claiming territory. And it deepens your grasp of Paul's arguments, why he was so insistent on dismantling things like circumcision, dietary laws, ethnic privilege as the core markers of God's people. He was shifting the very foundation.
And for church historians.
It's absolutely foundational. You can't really understand the trajectory of the early church, the complicated, often tragic history of Jewish-Christian relations, or even the writings of the early church fathers without grasping the impact of 70 CE and especially the Bar Kokhba revolt. It shaped everything that followed.
It really feels like the work of Yadin, Harkabi, and Mendels is this incredible gift. They took this period that was often overlooked or misunderstood and just shown this incredibly bright detailed light on it. And like you said, it doesn't undermine faith. It actually gives it this richer, more solid historical grounding.
I really believe that. And, another benefit, when Christians take the time to understand this history, to understand the Jewish perspective and the trauma of events like the Bar Kokhba revolt,
Yeah.
it creates amazing opportunities for real dialogue, for mutual respect and understanding with Jewish scholars, with Jewish communities. It shows we've done our homework, that we care about their history too. It builds bridges.
That's a great point. So maybe the final thought for you, the listener, is this. The Bar Kokhba revolt stands as this powerful, maybe cautionary tale. It reminds us that theological conviction, if it's not grounded in historical reality, if it ignores the hard lessons of strategy and circumstance, well, it can lead down a tragic path.
History has consequences.
Definitely. The secrets from the Cave of Letters are out. The analysis has been done. The question really is, will you have the courage, the diligence to really wrestle with what we've talked about today and let it shape how you understand the past and maybe even the present?